Welcome to the Evolutionary Women's Podcast. I'm your host, Jeanie Manchester. Join me in this sacred space for exploring the journey of spiritual awakening in the everyday and the ordinary. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of our new releases. So let's go ahead and dive into today's episode. Hey everyone, I just wanted to take a moment to recap my beautiful interview with John Douillard. If you don't know John, he is a globally recognized leader in the field of Ayurveda, natural health, nutrition, and sports medicine. He has over 40 years of experience and has helped over 100,000 patients. Dr. John is a renowned Ayurvedic educator. He's the host of Ayurveda Meets Modern Science podcast, and he's had many authored books, 7 to be exact, including Eat Wheat and the 3-Season Diet. He's also the creator of LifeSpa.com, where I did my first Panchakarma 24 years ago. And really, he is responsible for my leading cleanses twice a year in my community, as well as my longing to concretize my studies. So I've been in Shakti school the last couple of years, and we'll be taking a group of women back to India for Panchakarma next year in 2026. We imagine that will be fall of 2026. So enjoy this podcast. We focus on women's hormones and menopause and the challenge that our lymph system undertakes during that time, and just the importance of working with modalities like Ayurveda. So enjoy the podcast. Let us know what you think. Welcome, everyone, to the Evolutionary Women's Podcast. I'm your host, Jeanie Manchester, and it's my deep honor to tell you that I have John Douillard here today. Hi, John.
Hi, Jeanie. Nice to see you.
Well, I first dove into Ashtanga yoga, but simultaneously, there was a woman there, Teresa Bradford, who was one of my favorite teachers, who was studying Ayurveda. And with Maya Tawari, I think primarily. And so she was sort of my guide into Ayurveda at that time, and was super influenced as a yoga practitioner to align with the seasons, to heal as much as I could. And then I had babies, and I kind of drifted in and out, and then started cleansing with you, actually, and have now guide women in those twice a year daily twice a year seasonal cleansing, to help people understand how digestion is so important to their health and well-being. And as we discussed, I ran into you on the trail a few weeks ago, and was with actually a lot of women that I mentor. And it was just so sweet because I was like, hey, Dr. John. So it's been a long time since I've seen you in person. And actually, I think our boys were on the same soccer team one season. And so I just think it's, you're such a gem in this community. And of course, you're a worldwide recognized Ayurveda doctor. And I think it might be interesting for me and our listeners to go back to, you were really into sports and athleticism, and I as well kind of entered even Ashtanga through the lens of athleticism. So maybe take us back to how, briefly, because I know we want to get into our topic of women and aging and menopause and so forth, but how did you, I think it was through the lens of athleticism that you arrived at Ayurveda.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was so, that was the first time we actually walked on that I think it's called the Annie U Trail.
Annie White.
Oh my God, Annie White Trail. Yeah. I was blown away by that. And then all of a sudden, I see you. It was just really crazy, special. It was really, really, really nice. And it's so nice to see you and then connect like this. So it's been too long, for sure. We've been friends from a distance for a very long time. So it's great to see you. Okay, so in 1981, I think it might have been, I went to my first lecture on yoga, Ayurveda, and meditation. And I was training for an Ironman at the time. And I went up to the Ayurvedic doctor after, and I said, hey, I'm training for an Ironman. What does Ayurveda think about doing all this exercise? And he was like, what is that? And I said, well, it's like a 2.5-mile swim, 26-mile run, 112-mile bike, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, why do you do that? And of course, I had really, no one ever asked me that before. I didn't really have an answer, and I felt like sort of an idiot. And then he says, he goes, do you meditate? And I said, yes, actually, I do. I learned meditation. My mom taught me, my sister and I initiated in TM when we were like 17. And I said, yeah, so I do. And he goes, do you sleep while you meditate? And I said, deeply. I get deep sleep. It's great. Like I meditate, conk out. Then I was in school at the time and I study. It's great. And he said, well, actually, sleep is completely different than meditation. Meditation is a state of restful alertness, and sleep is conked out. You are probably exhausted. That's why you can't maintain the state of being resting and alert at the same time when you meditate. You just fall asleep because you're exhausted. So yeah, you're probably doing too much, so stop. And I say, whoa, what if I was able to not fall asleep when I meditated? Could all this exercise be good for me? And he was like, at that point, just trying to get rid of me and said, yeah, you can do that. So I started going to meditate. I was in LA, I was in chiropractic college at the time. And I started going to meditation retreats like once a month. And then I went for a 2-week one. And I came out of that 2-week meditation retreat shot out of a cannon. In my book, Body, Mind, Sport, the last chapter is called Jet Fuel. And it was my experience of having this zone runner's high peak experience for 3 months. And I started competing at a much higher level. Many of my friends thought I was on steroids. Many of them learned to meditate because I knew what I was actually doing. And it was that recovery and that getting that deep rest that allowed me to have this incredible boost in performance, competing at a very high level in the South Bay. That was California, where triathlons were really kicking off, And but it was also in my clinical internship. I had a level of academic bandwidth that was just mind-boggling. I could take on so much, but I was calm on the inside. And I started calling that the eye of the storm, which is the bigger the eye, the more powerful the winds. And I started realizing that this is how we're supposed to be on this planet, is this incredible calm that supports this incredible productivity. Meditation was like living a cave, because I learned meditation. It was like, just like, it was almost like you can't be involved in the world. You have to meditate and retreat and escape from it. I was like, and I never liked that model. But this was like, wait a minute, you guys got it wrong. This is like the bigger the calm, the more productive and powerful and productive you can be in your life. So I got just like completely like fascinated by the runner's high, the zone, started reading books on it and ended up going to India, studying it, came back. That's where I met Deepak Chopra back in, that was 1986. Now I'm in India studying Ayurveda. We got lucky. I was invited to stay there permanently. And when I came back, I met Deepak there, came back, ran his center for 8 years, started training medical doctors, Ayurveda. And that's where I started putting the ancient wisdom and the modern science together, which is kind of what we still do at LifeSpa. But the cool thing is that I started doing research on nose breathing versus mouth breathing. And we proved that when you actually breathe properly, your brain goes into a meditative calm during vigorous exercise. And I was like, wow, this is what we're really here to do. What Ayurveda was really about. There's an old saying in the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita says, yoga stha kuru kamani, which means establish being and then perform action. And if you just perform the action, now you're dodging refrigerators in the winds of the storm. It's dangerous out there. But if you could create that inner calm and hail from that place, then the bigger the calm, the more productive you can be in your life. And you don't get beat up by the stress in your life. And that's sort of the model of what, got me here. And I've been writing books and writing articles about, now it's like so cool because all this quantum science is coming in, understanding how the field is really the source of the physiology. When the physiology forgets that it's part of the field, that was the Ayurvedic description of disease. And now we have ways to restore the memory of pure consciousness in the physiology by putting the body's attention at the junction point between field and physiology, which happens to be the gap between the sunrise and the sunset, the equinox and the seasons, the gap between the breath, the gap between your thoughts, like all these like gap therapies. There's photons that release out of your DNA thousands per minute that can be coherent or incoherent. Incoherent when you're stressed out and caused by DNA damage. But research shows, when you meditate, yoga, breathe, and become calm, the incoherent, damaging biophotons or ultra-weak photon emissions become coherent. And when they become coherent, they carry thoughts, they carry information within your body, and they also carry intention. So all of a sudden, these photons, which literally exist at the junction between field and physiology, because they can be both a frequency of light or a particle of light, they literally are the junction point between consciousness and matter. And they're all over. We are filled with photon emissions. We're light, basically, but our light can get dim because of stress and toxins and so on. And Ayurveda was like the system to say, hey, I can teach you how to get rid of the damaging, incoherent, poor light bulbs in your body and actually start to let them start to really shine the light in both directions. If you wanted to restore the memory of pure consciousness, the field into the physiology, you would put the light in the doorway so it can shine into both rooms. And that's where the light exists, as right at the junction point between field and physiology. So there's a whole monster amount of information about proving this ancient modern wisdom and how that density, that lack of light functioning in the physiology causes all these age-related decline, degenerative concerns, unnecessary aging factors, I like to call them, that we have total control over based on the ancient wisdom and really good modern science.
Wow. Well, you because my direct experience is this, and I want to back up to just say it's really quite auspicious that you were initiated into TM at the age of 17. I'm initiated into Nilakanta meditation, which is sort of a cousin of TM, and there's 6-7 iterations of mantra that you receive over time to literally break through that density, to awaken the life force within you that is locked up in some samskaric debris of one kind or another. So, I just want to say that's no small thing at 17 to receive initiation, especially, back then in a way. It's becoming more prevalent. I hear it, and I have initiated many, many, many people into mantra. And so just wanted to start there, and then just to say that, it was really in my late 40s that I started to feel some of this decline. It was perimenopause, which, at the time I was like, what is wrong with me? I'm getting these headaches. I was, running around teaching yoga classes and not understanding, thought, oh my God, I got to get my brain checked. Had cranial work with my sister, which would help, but then they would come back. So at that time, this incredible teacher, this master teacher, Paul Muller Ortega, walked into my life. And I had this inclination, like, even from back with Richard, that meditation was important, that it wasn't just a weekend warrior thing. And so I ended up getting initiated with Paul. And I'd never liked to make health claims, but within 3 months of daily regularity, and I meditate twice a day, just because even with, kids in high school, middle school at that time, I was like, you know what, I want to commit to this. And once I started to feel that calm, that the inner calm of, you said, the storm, I felt different. And the headaches, went away within 3 months of daily regularity. I do not get those headaches at all. I had not had one since starting meditation. I mean, I get other kinds of like stress, muscular stress, headaches. But that was my like, okay, like I gotta return to my roots again, which is, meditation, Ayurveda. I was doing asana, but when I went to India a couple of years ago to really kind of reinstate my commitment to panchakarma and to cleansing and to living more closely to those Ayurvedic roots, I was stunned, John, because what came up in that first week of Panchakarma, and this can be a nice segue into women and aging in general, but what they saw was I had sciatic pain. And I was like, they came in every morning, but they're so nourishing. I had a woman doctor, I had a male doctor. They came to see me every day. And, I was like, how are you today? I said, well, I have a sciatic pain, I guess, because I haven't been moving. I haven't done my asana. I haven't been doing my walking. I haven't been running up the mountains. I haven't, and they just smiled at me so sweetly. And they said, oh yeah, well, this is part of what's in your tissues. And I started to kind of have some aha moments of, okay, this is perhaps the pitta pushing the vata dosha. And they said, this is sort of Western woman running around syndrome. So I'm curious what you think, because I am an athlete still. And what I see is I need more rest. And that twice a day dipping into the well of consciousness, say dipping a cloth into that light of consciousness, a vibratory field, I am a completely different person. So I thought, and I still have to, what is that word in Ayurveda, prajna, when you do something you shouldn't be doing, right? There's a word for that.
You're talking about pragya.
Yes. Isn't that where, it's like better, but you do it anyway?
The mistake of the intellect. Yeah, for sure.
Mistake of the intellect.
Yeah.
So I can see that in my personality. Even to this day, I have to kind of just like, this morning, I was like, it's dark. I'm not going to go do a weight workout. I'm going to actually rest and meditate and prepare for this beautiful time with you. So, but that, I think there is sort of a Western drive, and maybe it's worldwide, but and now I'm in my 60s, right? So it's like to keep driving the body in that way that I did in my 20s in a Ashtanga Vinyasa doesn't seem appropriate anymore, even though, of course, like I do my weight workouts and but it's like timing and appropriateness. And I don't teach the same asana class every day. Yesterday, my students came in and they said, at least 5 or 6 of them said, I'm tired. I said, well, look at the season we're in, right? Let's start on our backs, and we'll do a nice movement, but doesn't, segue into meditation, but it doesn't have to be this, strong Ashtanga thing, which I, of course, loved in my 20s and still have parts of that serve. But maybe it's a nice segue into aging and appropriateness. And what do you see? Like re-gauging your energy and asking daily, what is, the leaves off the trees here right now. What is appropriate?
That's a loaded question and a lot there. I think that when we get older, it's well documented that the physiology of a centenarian, someone over 100, versus someone in their 30s, completely different physiology, right? That we are not the same person we are in our 30s and then 60s and then 80s and then 100. So what our culture is trying to tell us to do is, well, you should take, when you're in your 60s or your 70s to get young again, you should be taking NAD precursors, which decline as you age. You should be taking things like peptides, which decline as you age, that will increase the production of growth hormone. So you grow better and make more healthy tissue and so on. Well, there's a reason why our metabolism slows down as we age, because as you get older, we are going to, you and I know, I'm 69 and I'm not the same as when I was 29. There's no question about it. So our body is different. And if we just start revving up 30-year-old metabolism in a 69-year-old body, you could run the risk of triggering a lot of growth in your body that you don't want. And there's good studies to show that NAD precursors like NMN and NR and all these things everybody's taking to get young again have been shown to be linked to tumor growth and cancer growth. Peptides have been shown to link to tumor growth and cancer growth. That doesn't mean they're bad. It means that you have to be careful what you do to your body as you get older. And what I love about Ayurveda is they had a whole system called Rasayana, which was the study of aging, the study of longevity. It was one of the 8 branches of Ayurveda. And it was really understanding things that were, more. I was just talking to my wife this morning about this, how what we know about the physiology in Western medicine is still so primitive. So here's what we know. We have in Ayurvedic, now I'm going to make this really clear so people understand how it works. You eat food. That food, if it's not properly broken down, wheat, dairy, nuts, seeds, grains, legumes, nightshades, oxalates, goitrogens, all these things that are hard to digest, people say, don't eat, don't eat, don't eat. We're told bubble wrap your diet, don't eat those foods. Well, those foods are designed to create a little bit of irritation called hormesis that creates an immune response. That's called gut immunity. But if you don't eat those foods because you don't feel good eating them, you don't have a reason for gut immunity. So we have research that shows that your gut immunity dials down significantly when you take the food out of your diet, as opposed to putting restoring the function of stomach acid, bile flow, pancreatic enzyme, all these digestive processes. And the studies show that when you don't break those foods down properly, they will get uptaken into the garbage can, which is the collecting ducts of your lymphatic system. And I just wrote 2 articles that are coming out soon on our website, one on the lymph and hormones, reproductive hormones for women, and one on longevity and the relationship to the lymph and longevity. And studies show that as we get older and our metabolism slows down, the senescent cells, the zombie cells, the cells that should die, time, cell death, apoptosis, that doesn't happen as we get older. And these zombie cells stay in our body and accelerate age-related decline, degeneration, things like that. So we're trying to do all these things to clean up the zombie cells. Well, the research shows clearly that those zombie cells actually build up in the lymphatic system. And when the lymphatic system gets congested, which the lion's share of which is around your belly, and then from there it goes into it's underneath your skin called the skin-associated lymph. It's in your brain called the brain lymph and glymphatic systems, which dump 3 pounds of trash out of your head every year while you sleep. So you got to sleep good to get good drainage. And if you don't have good brain lymphatic drainage, you're going to get, according to the research, because they only discovered the brain lymph about 15 years ago, University of Virginia. Ayurveda knew all about it 1,000 years ago. They created techniques like nasya, pranayama, which is the pump for the cerebral spinal fluid, all the stuff they knew about. And so when you don't have good brain lymphatic drainage, which most people don't, because most people don't have good digestion, and if you're not breaking down the proteins and fats, the gluten, the dairy, the heavy metals, the environmental pollutants, all fat soluble, they're going to end up in the lymphatic system, coming out through your skin, building up in your joints, clogging your brain, creating, and here's the list of things that Western medicine has linked to brain lymphatic congestion: anxiety, depression, cognitive decline, inflammation, infection, poor sleep, and autoimmunity. Autoimmunity means that the body is now, the master computer doesn't know how many fire trucks to send to the immune event somewhere in your body, so it sends too little or too many. Too many means it starts eating its own self. And when they discovered long-haul COVID, they linked it directly to congestion of the brain lymph congestion. They don't hear about that because they have no way in Western medicine to treat the brain lymphatic system, although there's volumes of research in the medical journals about the lymph system and the brain lymph system. Ayurveda talked about exactly how to detoxify your brain lymph and lymphatic system with specific pranayama techniques, nasya techniques. Even just giving yourself a vigorous massage on your head increases the circulation of the lymph in your brain. So all this stuff was understood in Ayurvedic medicine. But when the lymph system gets congested, here's the part that I think is mind-boggling. In the Western journals, there are so much research about how when lymph gets congested, you're not going to clear your hormonal system. So when you go through menopause and you're changing your hormone manufacturing site from your ovaries during menopause to your skin to your liver, there's a lot of metabolic metabolites, hormonal metabolites that have to be processed via your lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is delivering fat as precursors to make those hormones with. So if you don't have good lymphatic flow because you don't have good digestion, and you can't eat wheat, dairy, nuts, seeds, grains, legumes, nightshades, oxalates, that's sort of the canary in the coal mine telling you something's wrong. And then you have poor lymphatic flow in your lymph system, which is the rasa. And the study of rasa in Ayurveda is called rasayana. And the study of rasayana is the study of longevity in Ayurveda. It's like that simple. So if you don't have good digestion, you don't have good lymphatic flow, and the senescent cells build up in the lymph. The precursors to making the hormones in this new manufacturing site your body's trying to figure out during menopause takes place via the delivery of fat via your lymphatic system. But if your lymphatic system is congested, you can't deliver the precursors to those hormones, so you need HRT. You know what I mean? But the body can do this. It's been doing it for millions of years. We can do it without HRT, right? Obviously, right? We don't need HRT. And of course, HRT may be okay and needed for some folks, but it isn't where you should start. This is the best place to start to fix your digestion, get your lymphatic system working so the body can deliver the precursors itself so you can make your own hormones in this new manufacturing site that you're just opened up in Mexico, and they don't know what they're doing down there. But we're trying to figure out how to make hormones in a new way, in a new place, because I transitioned from the ovaries doing the job for me, right? So the beauty of this is that the lymphatic system is really this unsung, ununderstood system of which there's volumes of research buried in the journals, none of it in application in medical practice. But the lymph system, this is the part that is mind-boggling, how far advanced Ayurveda was. When you eat your food, you eat it in a calm way, whole food, no processed food, no pesticides, no insecticides, and you eat that food in a calm way, the emotional impact on those bugs is real. If I scream at this yogurt in this bottle here, the bugs will morph. So if I'm stressed out when I'm eating, how I create what's called the ahara rasa, the rasa, the lymph in my digestive system is going to be altered. And that lymph gets absorbed through what are called the lacteals around your intestinal tract. And when that's not proper, extra undigested proteins and fats will fill the lymph around your belly and hips and give you extra weight around your belly and hips. The lymph's trying to take away all the trash from every cell of your body. The lymph's trying to carry your immune system, and the lymph's trying to deliver fat so you can make those hormones the way you were designed. So, but the lymph is also the precursor to your blood, the precursor to your muscle, the precursor to your fat, the precursor to your bone, to your nerve, to your reproductive tissue, and finally, this crazy substance they call ojas, which is the final product of digestion. This takes 30 days to complete, which is dependent on every one of those steps being, in a way, sattvic or balanced or somehow balanced, right? And all we know right now is in the medical journals, buried is all this research on lymph, which I write about. None of it's in medical practice. The next tissue that's produced out of the lymph is your blood. I mean, we look at the blood, analyze the blood, say you have too much or too little cholesterol in your blood, this or that. So we try to manipulate like it was a gas gauge. Oh, you're low on testosterone. Let me boost it for you. You're low on progesterone. Let me boost it for you. Never asking the question, why is it low? That's what we know about the blood, which is pretty ignorant, really. And then that converts into muscle and to fat and to bone, to nerve, to reproductive tissue. We know nothing about how these very subtle transitions take place. And Ayurveda was like all over that. I was just going like, oh my God, we are light years away from really understanding how the body works. And when you dial it back to what we said at the beginning, how the field must be remembered as part of the physiology for those transitions to take place in a whole way. So not only can we be healthy physiology is just kind of a requirement for having subtle awareness. So we can begin to, over time, as we get older in our 60s and 70s and 80s, begin to refine the nervous system, perceive subtle energy, and begin to thin the veil between the physical and the spiritual. So we don't have to die to find out that we're a spirit and we go, oh yeah, that is a spirit. This thing continues in some way, shape, or form. There was a study, a UCLA study, that showed that as we get older, I love this one because in Ayurveda, it says very clearly that as you get older, you are moving into the wisdom years where you really are more wise, able to be more spiritual. The Vata years, the air, the Akash, the space becomes more prevalent as opposed to the earth and the heaviness and the fire of, when we're raising our kids, we're moving and doing all this stuff, too busy to really have a spiritual life, really. But as we get older, we take that wisdom, we carry it into, thinning that veil and, hopefully the desire to find God before it's too late. But the UCLA study said, not only do we have the desire to find God before it's too late, we literally have the physiological hardware, the capacity. We're more able to perceive subtle energy as we get older, which is like, what? We're supposed to get old and rickety and, just be useful and useless and get, put out to pasture. But no, the studies show that we are more capable of perceiving subtle energy in that way. And that's the beauty of this aging process. The Ayurveda was keeping your body healthy so we can actually reap the benefit, the cream on the top of this last stage of our life, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and however long we live. But that's the beauty of it. And that's kind of what we are so locked into the physical. I want ripped abs and I want to look, and I want to take that youthful metabolism to my 90s with no understanding of the subtle, with no understanding of that. The more subtle something is, Ayurveda clearly says, the more powerful it is. Like your microbiome, you can't see them, but those bugs govern everything. The circadian rhythms, they're rhythms that birds fly south, whales migrate. We can't see them, but they're governing everything. So it's really that understanding of that, the beginning to perceive the subtle things. And that gives us more awareness. Like you said, bringing the awareness and dipping the cloth in the dye of that consciousness and then bringing that experience of consciousness into the physiology. That's what wakes you up, because the studies show that stress that we have in our world, the winds of the storm, are directly linked to all aspects of metabolic syndrome. If you're under a lot of stress, which our culture, right, is 90 miles an hour, we're going here, going there, this and this and this, got to pay the bill, trying to do one thing, your computer breaks down, you spend a half a day trying to figure out how to log in and da-da-da-da. It's just like your whole world is completely filled of things that are so busy, busy, busy. It's like there's a bear 100 yards away from you, and it's following you around 24/7. And you're constantly having to look at that because it might decide to attack you. So there's this constant worry, this constant stress. And when your body's under chronic constant stress, compared to our ancestors who just lived in this complete resonance with nature, so still and so calm, that the body is going to, when it's under stress, it's going to put more cholesterol into your blood, right? To make the stress hormone with. It's going to raise your blood pressure quicker and faster and chronically to get you up a tree to save your life if that bear decides to attack. It's going to raise your blood sugar to give you more energy. It's going to take any reserve fuel you can find and put it under your mattress and store it as reserve fuel so we gain weight. So the stress is directly linked to the impact, first and foremost, of your body's lymphatic system. And that creates congestion of the lymph, therefore compromised immunity, therefore compromised hormonal clearance, hormonal delivery, hormonal production. So you wonder as why we get older, we have all these problems. That's where we should be starting to focus in on how are you digesting your food, and what can I do to cleanse and detoxify your lymphatic system? And I've written like articles after articles about this. We have a digestive health quiz people can take for free to find out what part of your digestion system is broken, how to fix it with herbs and food. We have a lymphatic quiz, find out what part of your lymph is broken and how to fix that with, we have a lymph cleanse kit that has all the different aspects of your lymph that you want to clean out. I've written so much about this and it's so critical. And now I'm just digging into so much more science behind it. I'm like super excited about the fact that when they said Rasayana was the branch of longevity and Rasa is your lymph, we should pay attention. And now I'm just recently excited about this, like my new thing, because I've always talked about the lymph, but now the research on it is so overwhelming that even in Western science, you can't ignore it. And in Ayurveda, it was like the branch for longevity is understanding how the subtle food becomes your lymph and how then it creates the rest of your tissues in your body. And we're so far away from that complete understanding. We just treat the body, fix the problem, put out the fire, but never really you look at the more subtle aspects, the chronic stressors that cause these things to go wrong. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, I just, first of all, I just love that you have both, like you really doing the research and you have all this wisdom of Ayurveda and you've combined it. I just want to acknowledge that that is unique and really needed right now. And then I just wanted to go back to this idea of sattva, because it's something that I really have come to understand more through deep states of meditation, of going into this sort of black hole of sequencelessness to that place where we do dissolve into a transcendent experience. And, people go, I don't want to leave my body. I'm like, you're not leaving your body. You're touching something that you already are. And in that is called sattva, the elixir that, Don Vantari comes up through the central channel with, which is eventually Kundalini Shakti. It is a natural, spontaneous experience of diving deep into that sequenceless place, the black hole, if you will. And then from that place, it's almost like you're gathering the soma and you're bringing it back through your senses into life. And then that informs the way we eat or the way we speak or the way we go about our tasks in life. So I think that, what I'm like listening to, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's like taking that experience of sattva into life, which is what those Vedic rishis understood. That's what they heard. They downloaded these sounds of the universe. They downloaded Ayurveda, right? This is extraordinary. This is agama, what the tradition calls agama. It is a download from that source place, that pulsing, vibrating space of consciousness. And so if we don't have that connection, and certainly, I've had to go back, and that's why I meditate daily, to remember to recognize, and then when I go to my meal, I don't grab my food and go into the car and start driving to my next thing, which is, I've worked with women all the time around, just no, we're not in a hurry when we eat. How to establish the sattva, wherever we go. So, it sounds so simple. It starts with digestion, but that really is the truth, right? And that, there's so much I've learned through Ayurveda around just my habits and patterns, and just came off meditation retreat and just could see the impulse to recoil from that space inside, because the ego is kind of afraid of it. It's afraid of annihilation. But actually, this is the source place from which we live from, and also we will return to. So I'm just kind of going back to this sort of this basic understanding of what it means to be sattvic, which is, this peaceful, calm, connected space that then informs every activity we do. And importantly, so how we eat. And so, it seems like, I don't know, because there are all these other issues that people come to me with, like joint pain. And, we know this is ama in the tissues, and yes, the workout with strengthening your glutes can help, right? I've had that certainly be true of my own body. And then just looking at how am I eating? Am I eating in the dark? Am I eating with the light? Do I eat too late? Do I wake up and, do I actually have hunger? These are all basic Ayurvedic tools. And yet I think it goes back to not respecting that at times, not listening close enough. So, I'm thinking about all these issues that women have come to me with, which is certainly weight creep and not sleeping. Sleeplessness is a huge issue. It has been for me, and it's listening to you, I've actually taken on little small doses of melatonin, which has seemed to be very impactful to my sleep. And so it's not that we're not, you have a whole treasury of herbs, that we take, when we seasonally cleanse. We always go to your apothecary. And so it's not saying don't take on some of these, the herbs especially seem to be part of the rasayana, if you will, right? Like it's not that we're not augmenting, or, I go and have acupuncture. I do augment the healing process. I do meditate, right? So if you want to talk about like do all of these symptoms start in that sattvic state? Or if we're not in that sattvic state, then we see the weight creep because the lymph is not properly functioning, right? Sleeplessness. I mean, I'm trying to think of all these other things that people have come to me, but mostly it's like brain fog or weight creep or sleeplessness or an inability to, get their work in the world, move things into the world. Yeah. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that. I did get a question also about what you think about AI in our future. It's kind of like, where do we go with all of that?
Well, let's talk about sattva. I think it's a great place to start. Sattva is that eye of the storm, right? Where instead of needing love and appreciation and approval and acceptance from the outside world, you are giving the love and the appreciation to the outside world, that you feel full enough where you can actually love and be kind to others fully. And that's what sattva is. There was a study done where they took a group of people, and one group gave gifts to another group of people in a hedonistic way, where they kind of wanted to get some reward, something return on investment. Like, I'm giving you this gift, and aren't I wonderful? Did it fit? Do you like the color?
Mm-hmm.
You like, I really am invested in you liking it, and then I feel good because you like it, right? That hedonistic giving. And then there were the other group gave what's called eudaimonic giving. Eudaimonic giving means I give you with no expectation. I just felt the love to give it to you, and I have no attachment to the outcome whatsoever. When they gave in a hedonistic way, it had a negative effect on the genetic code of the people they were giving it to. So when you're giving a gift to someone or doing something for someone or to someone because you want them to like you in any way, they can tell that you're full of it, and they're not going to feel safe to open the delicate petals of their flower and let who they are out and have a relationship based on truth. Not going to happen. But when they gave in a eudaimonic way, it had a positive change on the genetic code of the people they were giving it to and on the one who was giving. And they felt safe because it was coming from the truth. And they felt safe to open up. And now we had these two hearts opening and having resonance with each other. And that's sattva. That willingness to take that risk, to be vulnerable, to be delicate, to be powerful, and to be open in the petals of that flower when your mind goes, no, they might not love you back, so you better hold on. That's the beginning of it, is the beginning of the lack of sattva. And every time that you feel that little bit, what if they don't like me? You change how you breathe. A little bit different. That bear over there, I see it 100 yards away. I change a little how I breathe. That breath becomes permanent in short order without you knowing it. The rib cage has a job, which is squeeze the air out. And that's all it knows how to do. And every time you feel a little stressed out, you take a little bit of a more shallow breath, rib cage gets a little tighter, diaphragm gets a little weaker. And over time, you become a shallow breather. You have no idea this is happening. I've been in Boulder forever. I used to teach my nose breathing class in North Boulder Park forever and ever. And I would watch all the yogis come through, and they were great on the mat, right? But as soon as I put them on a treadmill, I have them walk, they couldn't breathe. It was like weird. Like, you guys know how to, like, we have to teach you how to take this calm off the mat into your life. That's where we live it, So every time that you get stressed out, driving in traffic, your kids, this and that, there's plenty for us to not breathe about in this world, right? One study with elite athletes found that 91% of them did not have a diaphragm relaxing and contracting fully. So when you start shallow breathing, you trigger the fight or flight receptors. And that immediately tells your body that bear's over there, I'm being chased by something, and I need to go into that fight or flight degenerative response, which tells you directly, don't digest your food right now. There's a bear chasing you, get up a tree, save your life. So if you're living in that state, the body says, no, we're not digesting food well. So you're right. Taking time, relaxing, eating the food at the right time is a really important place to start. But what happens over time is the rib cage becomes rigid. I was in a restaurant about a year and a half ago. Coming out, I was coming in, and about 3 elderly folks, maybe in their 80s or 90s, were coming out. They were really frail. Their mouths were open, and they were huffing and puffing. And I was helping them get out of these double doors kind of thing. And I looked at them and I was like, if someone would have told them that if they would just strengthen their diaphragm 5 minutes a day, that, according to the research I'm citing, would reverse their heartburn, GERD, reflux, and indigestion. It's been shown to lower their blood pressure, studies on it at CU Boulder, faster than the Western medication in just 3 minutes. It would actually pump the cerebral spinal fluid, which is the number one pump of the brain lymph system, is your diaphragm, which is a pump for that, and dump the 3 pounds of trash out of your head and reverse the age-related cognitive decline. It would allow them not to be shallow breathers where they have to breathe with their mouth open all the time because they can't actually get a deep lower lobe breath. Studies show women with breast cancer have more congestion of the anterior diaphragmatic lymph nodes, and the diaphragm is the number one pump of your entire lymphatic system, most chronically around your belly, which is why we get extra weight there first. And I said, if that's all we have to do is, and the most important thing is to preserve as we get older, is that respiratory efficiency, which goes back to my first book about nose breathing versus mouth breathing, right? Mm-hmm. So learning how to breathe, and not just, and pranayama is really great, but most people who do pranayama, they're doing it with a rib cage that's so rigid because it got rigid because all the stress that we just adapted to, and now we're breathing like a rabbit. We have no idea we're doing it. So I started teaching my students what I call calisthenics for their diaphragm, like just to break up the scar tissue in the rib cage, free the diaphragm from being attached to the rib cage. Simple things like Durga Pranayama, where you breathe your belly, chest, upper chest, but then putting it into action, like taking your arms over your head and then filling your belly through the nose only, and then your chest as you continue to inhale, then your upper chest. And then when you get to the upper chest, you want to take it to what Western medicine called, or Western science calls, maximum inspiratory breathing. So all the research that I just cited with those old folks coming out of the restaurant was published in medical journals under the name maximum inspiratory breathing techniques, which means you have to take your diaphragm maximally. So that's what we don't do. So what this breathing technique does is you fill your belly. Then as you continue to inhale, fill your chest, fill your upper chest. Now I'm going to reach for the sky as high as I can, make my rib cage go up, and I'm going to sip the air in to take it to maximum. And as I reach, sip, I can feel a big pull into my rib cage. My diaphragm's going down, my rib cage is going up, and then I breathe out, narrow my rib cage, contract all the way out. I do 10 like that, 10 to the side, and you can do it right in front of your computer. You bend over to the side, fill your belly, fill your chest, fill your upper chest, sip, sip, sip. You feel a big pull here separating those ribs as you pull, as the diaphragm's going down, rib cage is going up and over, and as you breathe out, squeeze out all the air. That you can do in front of your computer 5 minutes a day, and that will free up your rib cage and your diaphragm. And then your pranayama and your breathing will actually start to work for you. I have an article called The Best Diaphragmatic Breathing Exercises, and that's the second video. First one is just Durga Pranayama. The third one is just doing some very simple yoga, like a child's pose or a very gentle, bridge or a twist, and then fill your belly, fill your chest, your upper chest, and sip, sip, sip to take it to maximal. To get that diaphragm to fully contract and that diaphragm to fully relax, which 91% of athletes don't have that kind of function. So all of us need to do this. And otherwise, the rib cage wins the war, and it just gets tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. And I feel like that's the thing that most folks can do, because when you start to breathe fully, deeply into the lower lobes, you're breathing into the parasympathetic receptors, which are the rest and digest receptors. So now the body has access to the nervous system to, everybody's talking about vagal this and vagal that. Great. But the way you actually create it is with an abdominal diaphragmatic cardiac massage, which means as you breathe out and narrow the ribcage and contract your abdomen is contracting onto your diaphragm contracting onto your heart, and that triggers a vagal response, puts your brain into alpha, and all of a sudden, we did that same thing in our exercise research. Now all of a sudden you're running as fast as you can, but your brain is responding to that stress as a meditation. That is a model for how you live your life. Busy, 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 but you're coming from that internal place of composure and calm. And that's determined, according to our research we published in the International Journal of Neuroscience, based on how you breathe. So with all the folks that you work with, this is the key, is to help take the breathing resiliency off the mat. And then from there, you can teach them pranayama and kumbhak and breath retention, and the benefits of that just go off the charts. But all that's really, really important. And it's something that we don't think about.
It's so interesting. There's so many little segues here for me. One was to go back to this example you're giving of the people that were kind of freely offering, needing nothing back, right? And that reminds me of again, that sattvic place inside where individuality merges with universality, if you will. And is happening in that state is the anavamala, the little one that feels separate from its wholeness, is being attenuated, really. It's being bathed in all this vibration so that when we come back, we feel more generous. We feel less needy of someone's approval or getting something tit for tat back, So it's interesting that it kind of goes back to these sort of basic things of connection to our source. Right. And I even think, I often start people on their backs, as Richard Freeman taught me, to breathe from the back body. We always said that the back body was connected to consciousness or universality, and that the breath being fed from that back body, not only is gravity supporting you when you're on your back, but also you're getting this big breath from sort of the lower lobes of the lung into the middle and then into the upper chest. And so it's almost like you're being asked to connect to that source as you're breathing and, doing, the 3-part, Viloma or Durga, I think you called it, is so essential. And now I'm really understanding better from you just how that's impacting the diaphragm. That must also be impacting our lymph system, right? Like it all sort of, it's all part of this whole. So I don't know if you have any other comments on that, but the Anavamala is that little one that feels separate from its oceanic self. So we say the wave in the ocean, right? That the wave feels separate from its oceanic self. It seems like that is sort of, if we circle back to where we started, it's like that connection is sort of the source of aging, the source of where we're going to have to let go into, and being prepared for that, but also being prepared to live more fully as we age from the source place within, which seems like will drive health on all these other levels. There's so many Ayurvedic practices of just, chewing 16 times and, before you swallow, and things that, that seem important, but also if we take it back to the source energy, when I sit down, if I'm feeling that sattva, then I'm going to just automatically, spontaneously take in food in a very conscious way. Anyway, the Honorable Mala was one of those malas that keeps us in separation, that causes all these problems, cascading problems of anyway. Anyway, that's what I was thinking about when you were talking about that. And oh my gosh, I'm seeing we're at time, John. I'm curious if you have any sort of last comments on how you personally want to age in the next couple of decades. And I know you're already doing that, but maybe words of wisdom. I know you're a family man. I've always loved that about you. Very dedicated to your children and your spouse, and so generous. I find you very, very generous, kind person that wants to serve. So I'm really grateful. And if you have any last comments of how you're going to take yourself into the next couple of decades.
I think we talked a lot about it, but I think my favorite quote these days is from an author from the early 1900s, Henry James, who wrote about the 3 most important things that a human can do. And the first most important thing that a human can do or be is to be kind. And then he continues and writes that the second most important thing is to be kind. And then the third most important is to be kind. Mr. Rogers picked up on that after many years and taught children that. It was such a blessing. But it's like when you really think about be kind, be kind, be kind, that's 3 levels of be kind. Like, okay, I can be kind to people at the grocery store, easy. I can even be kind to people who are mean to me. But then there's like that deep, deep level of be kind where, can I be kind to people who, are taking the happiness and the joy that is who I am, and now am I allowing them to make me unhappy? Even if someone is even dangerous, we do not have to give that power away to other people. No one has the power to take away our kindness, our ability to be loving, kind, and giving people, because that's who we are. Our mind walls us off, stops allowing us to feel, and then we start going into the world with our mind thinking, if I can get them to do this, I would feel better. If they would do it the way I think they should do it, life would be much better on the planet. If they would love me, appreciate, approve me, I would feel more content. If I buy shoes, I'd feel better. All this stuff from the outside world is where we go. But when you actually choose to be kind, to be kind, to be kind, then you realize that, and the research, I've written articles about the science behind when you actually do that, your oxytocin, your longevity hormone kicks, your good bugs proliferate, your bad bugs disappear, your telomeres lengthen. I mean, all this crazy stuff for longevity and happiness and refining consciousness, all of them surge when you choose to be kind and giving and loving for no reason, because it's your nature. And I feel like that's kind of what I try to do in my life these days, is just focusing in on that. And the other thing that I do personally is every morning I wake up, I meditate. And what I try to do, and I try to meditate outside the best I can, is I try to connect the silence inside of me with the silence in the morning, right? The morning, it's so still. You can cut it with a knife sometimes, So what I try to do is entrain that silence into my physiology, and the silence in my physiology I try to blur the lines, the border, the barriers between my body and the field around me, and try to maybe have the experience of having them one. So I reset, it's like pulling back the bow. I reset my awareness of that stillness, and then I try to carry that stillness into the rest of my day. That's kind of like super simple, but that's what I do. And then I just think that be kind, be kind, be kind is really like a lot of wisdom there,
Well, I don't feel like you're just saying that, but my experience of you is that you are that. And that is really extraordinary. It's a really extraordinary quality to have. And I do think that Ayurveda meditation, these are our reset points. They are connecting us to the cosmos, to consciousness in nature, in everything, and in each other. So I think that's a really beautiful place to end this time. Maybe we can have you back in the spring and we can talk about spring detox or something. But yeah, you remain just a really beautiful teacher. And I know that we don't see each other, but you just know that you are impacting so many people in my world through your work and through your research. And we are just so grateful for all that you do and all that you serve and all that you teach and research and give back. It's huge.
It's really kind of you, Jeanie. Thanks so much. It's really great seeing you again.
Yeah, you too.
If today's episode with Dr. John Douillard sparked something in you around the lymph and longevity, I want to invite you to dive deeper. In Ayurveda, the lymph, the rasa dhatu, is our first tissue of nourishment. And when it's flowing well, our digestion, hormones, mood, and immunity all feel supported. John's pioneering work on the lymph and brain detox has been transformational for me and for so many women in my community. If you'd like to explore his courses, cleanses, or herbal protocols, you can use my link, Yogini Jeanie, at checkout. And when you purchase through this link, you directly support this podcast and the Evolutionary Women's mission. Thank you for being here.